Was it you or someone you know?
I manage property, so we have a lot of incidents.
Is it like landlord-tenant
Right,
situation? Okay. And so usually your point of view isn't biased. When it comes to officers, your idea is whoever it is, based on them, we'd know.
Well, I know most of them, so it's not.
Okay. Do you know the officer on this case, though?
Don't know who is it.
It was Mr. Fletcher?
No.
Okay, perfect. Has any juror today served on a jury before? Yeah, juror number 1. What was the case? You were dismissed? How long ago was this? Oh, wow. Do you or anyone close to you work in law enforcement, security, or the legal field? Can you repeat that?
Finance and secretary.
Okay. And so, do you believe her being part of law enforcement in a way somehow would affect your views on this case?
No.
What are the general opinions about police officers and their roles in handling violent crimes? Juror number 1.
Can you speak up? We have a court recorder here, so she has to be able to hear everything that's said in the courtroom.
So I suppose the law officer would have to arrest someone.
You believe police officers are protected? Juror number 3. What are your general views on police officers?
I believe that
Or
just that they are responsible to go out when called upon and assess the situation to their best of their ability and be impartial in doing so.
exactly like you guys today, impartial, unbiased. I'm going to repeat the question again because we went through a lot of people. What are your general opinions about police officers and their role in handling violent crime? Juror number 5.
I believe they are protected. So what, I'm sure each police officer makes a judgment on what they need to do at the time.
Okay.
I'm grateful for them.
I know number 7, you said you know a lot of them. So how do you feel about their role in our city?
Was it Lansing?
Yeah.
I think you run the full gamut. I've seen good officers, very good officers, and I've seen some horrible officers.
Correct. And I mean, you see that with all types of people who do their job correctly and those who don't.
Well, in my opinion, I'm sure they think.
Yeah, of course. Our jurors, do you believe in a criminal justice, that our criminal justice system treats all individuals fairly and impartially? Number 1? No. And why do you say that?
is the officer that is on the scene has the sole duty to either arrest you, let you go.
And so the way a police officer responds to a situation, in your opinion, changes whether the system is fair or just.
It can be fair or unfair.
Correct. Okay. Number 2? Yes, for sure. Again, the question is, do you believe that our criminal justice system treats all individuals fairly and impartially?
I think it depends on the circumstance. I think we have systems in place that
And why do you say that?
because I think there's a lot of bias within the system.
I'd say
Juror number 4.
Generally, yes. I mean, no system's perfect, but everybody has an opportunity to at least go through the system and have their voice heard at some point. Generally, yes.
I think it can go either way, with the situation. You know, it can go good or it can go bad, and I guess it depends on us.
Oh, for sure, I'm sorry. Do you believe that our criminal justice system treats all individuals fairly and impartial?
I hope so. That's what it's all about, so.
Again, my questions are usually, do you believe? I'd like to get a viewpoint of your opinions on these matters. Number 7.
No, we don't.
You do not believe that. Our next question is, what are your general views on physical confrontations and the use of force in resolving disputes?
talking about officers.
No, general day-to-day life. I'd like to know what you believe, what are your thoughts on physical confrontation and using force to resolve a dispute? At all, or do you believe there is some justification?
Only if you're trying to protect yourself.
Yeah.
I don't believe that.
Three.
Yeah, same. I mean, it should be avoided, certainly. I could see circumstance in which it would be required for self-defense, but beyond that, you shouldn't be arrested. I guess.
So in your opinion, the major justification is also self-defense?
Correct.
I think it should be avoided.
Again, what are your general views on physical confrontations and the use of force in resolving disputes? In terms of avoided and
Avoid it.
the only time to use it is self-defense.
So, except if you're a police officer, obviously.
There's a lot going on there.
Or if you're in the military.
Thankfully, in this case, we're not dealing with an officer situation. It's just, the general public citizens. But we ask this to know your viewpoints on us and the court and, criminal justice in general. Next.
Can I say something?
Yes.
You asked a question, you asked some questions where I'm nodding instead of raising my hand. The answer was affirmative. You asked about people supposed to be involved in the legal system.
Yeah.
That's a yes for me.
Okay. Would you like to? Would you like to further on that? Who close to you works in law enforcement, security, or the legal field?
My 2 sons are both lawyers.
Okay, wonderful. What type of law do they do?
One has a private practice of his own, defense people, and my other son is in Hong Kong.
And do you believe that your sons being attorneys would in any way influence your views on today's case, which involves an assault and battery?
No.
Do you have any preconceived notions about people who commit acts of violence?
I would say no. Look at you.
It all depends on the
One act
situation.
of violence doesn't make somebody.
Number 2.
I agree. It depends on the circumstances.
Juror number 3. Again, the question is, do you have any preconceived notions about people who commit acts of violence?
Possibly.
Okay, what are your views?
I will have a negative opinion.
Yeah, depends.
Five,
Another situation, but, each situation is different, so I guess I would have to know. Like,
or number six. Any. All right. Jurors, do you have any strong opinions, positive or negative, about prosecutors or defense attorneys? Number one. Does having a defense attorney son change your mind about anything?
No.
No.
Fine.
no,
Kevin?
I think we're finding a story.
You can speak louder.
Oh.
I'm sorry, because I
Can't resist this. Okay. I'm just reminded of the story of what's 10 words at the bottom of the sea. It's a good start. Anyway.
so do you have any?
No, I
kind
don't.
of- Perfect, okay, because that's concerned for us. Jurors, have you heard anything about this case before today? If so, what have you heard? So as Judge Simmons has notified you, the case today involves an assault and battery charge. The people involved are our defendant, Miss Jennifer Venn, and our victim, Miss Angel Gillespie. So have you heard any details about this case in any way, shape, or form before today?
no.
Now we're going to get more into the legal basics of things. And my question to you is, are you willing to follow the law as explained by the judge, even if you disagree with it personally?
Yes.
Yes,
And so the jury instructions for this case do not involve an injury. Now we may bring one up, but being as these instructions do not involve an injury in order to prove that there was an assault and battery, would you be able to follow the jury instructions in making your deliberations even if you do not agree with that?
Yes.
Can you remain objective and not let personal feelings about violence influence your judgment on this case?
Yes.
yes.
How do you determine if someone is telling the truth when testifying in court? And I know this one is one of the most difficult questions I might have on there because I myself question it as well. But I wanted to see if you continue as our jury today, what are you looking for when trying to decide and determine if someone is telling the truth while testifying?
I'm sick major, so I've got. I'm not sure, I guess. Trust my gut.
Guess body language and comfortability and their understanding of what happened.
Body language is our winner so far. Jury number
I have
six?
to go with my intuition.
Jury number seven?
Integrity.
So those are our core values usually. But how could you tell when one is speaking that they are being honest?
That's the same words.
So when you see it, you'll know. Perfect. So, ladies and gentlemen, do you believe that if someone was charged with a crime, they are probably guilty?
No.
What do you believe is a appropriate punishment for someone convicted of assault and battery?
state law is on that. I guess we
So
have to go by
our-
what the law is.
You want to go with the law basically? So the state law based on the chart, the complaint shown by. So we'll skip that question and move on. I just have a couple more questions and we'll be done with me. Are you comfortable discussing and deliberating a case with other jurors who might have different viewpoints?
Yes.
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 And then is there anything, just to reiterate what the judge said earlier, is there anything in your personal or professional life that's going to make it difficult for you to serve today? And then the last main question here. Do you believe that you have any possible biases based on race, gender, or any other reasons that might change your viewpoint today?
No.
Under- Your Honor, the people are satisfied with our jurors today.
Ms. Rowley?
Thank you all for being here. I'm the attorney for the defendant, Ms. Jennifer Venn. The prosecutor asked a lot of great questions. Just a couple of things I wanted to follow up on. I believe it came up that you have children, is that correct? You get a show of hands on when they have children. You're number one, how many children do you have? Okay. Is your child growing now or still
Yes.
minor? Do you recall, like you said, right? Your son was small. You recall a situation where you felt like he wasn't telling you the whole truth. Like he was hiding something or trying to get away with something. Your experience, have you ever at least been a witness to a situation where you think that kid is lying? I can tell right away just by the way they're saying what they're saying. You have kind of an instinctive judge of truth that are police. Like we like to think that we do, right? Is there number 3 that also has children? Or okay, how many do you have?
3.
Okay. And how close are they in age?
To each other,
Yes,
very.
very close. So when they were little, they were all little. Okay. Ever have a situation where one child says one thing, the other says another thing? You have to kind of figure out what really is going on.
Yeah.
Okay. What do you look for to give you a sense of what the real truth is?
Better than just somebody's word. I mean.
Yeah, that makes sense. One child in this case is saying something that seems a little outlandish. Would that be a sign maybe if they're embellishing the truth?
Yes.
Okay. Have you ever had a situation where you felt like one of your kids was being bullied or being treated unfairly by other kids?
Yes.
How do you deal with something like that?
Right.
Really? You take it personally.
Yes.
So if I'm your child and I come to you and I say, Mom, their kids are being mean to me, or if they're, not inviting me to play kickball or whatever, what advice would you give me?
I'd say we're going to go talk to the principal.
Okay. Look for some authority to kind of mediate this. Definitely not something you want to kind of let lie, let it test.
Absolutely.
A general question I want to ask for all of you. Have any of you ever been involved in a fraternity or sorority at any point? Joined a fraternity at some point?
Trying to deter, yes.
Okay. I'm not going to ask you how long ago that was, but Do you recall in kind of the beginning process of getting in, feel like it's kind of a high pressure situation?
Sure.
A lot of social status kind of things at stake, right?
Sure.
You feel that being involved in that organization is benefit to you long term?
Yes.
I'm very certain of that. So.
Yeah.
Great. So one thing I wanted to touch on is this concept of reasonable doubt. I'm not sure about how they define that and what that exactly means. So if I told you that I am 50-50, I'm not sure if something happened or not. You can see that is less than reasonable doubt. In other words, I'm sure you know what I'm trying to get at. Is if you're not sure about the outcome of this case, and both not guilty, right? Is that burden of this reasonable doubt is pretty high. Does anybody feel that they would have difficulty with that? Have any of you ever been wrongfully accused of some wrongdoing? Maybe not in a legal situation, but at work or at school, anything like that? If you're number two, I think you nodded.
Yeah. At work, I was reporting to something that was ended up being different coworkers.
Okay. How does it make you feel? Not great. How did that turn out?
I ended up going to my boss and just letting them know the situation. They were able to look at the camera and realize it.
So you were able to prove that you were in the right.
Yeah.
So you were treated fairly in that situation?
Without, yes.
The outcome?
With the initial accusation.
Right, okay. I think that's about all the questions I have at the moment. I want to thank all of you.
Prosecution, any challenges for cause?
Not for cause, Your Honor.
Mr. Rowley, any challenges for cause?
None for cause, Your Honor.
Any preemptory?
Yes, Your Honor. The prosecution would like to thank and excuse juror number 7.
Thank you, juror number 7, you may be excused. And Mr. Rowley, any preemptories?
Yes, Your Honor, the defense would like to thank and excuse juror number 5.
Juror number 5, you may be excused. Okay, I'm gonna replace. Okay, prosecution, you can question those jurors.
Thank you for your service today, ladies. I just wanted to check with you. Did you hear our earlier question? Is there anything from those questions that stood out to you? All right. So I'm going to do a rundown right now, the most important stuff. Have you or anyone you know been a victim of an assault or battery? Have you ever been in a physical altercation, fight, any sort of argument that went physical or violent? Have you ever witnessed an assault? It could be you being a bystander. Have you or anyone close to you had any significant interactions with with law enforcement? Yes, and was that positive or negative? So is it positive or negative? Negative. And is it you personally or someone you know? And how did the interaction make you feel about law enforcement? So basically it changed your viewpoint in terms of law enforcement, the criminal justice system. Have any of you ever served on a jury trial before? No. You or anyone close to you work in law enforcement, security, or the legal field? What are your general opinions about police officers and their role in handling violent crime? Number 7.
My English is not very good.
But do you understand my questions thus far?
Not everything.
Juror number 5, back to you. I know you did say there was some sort of incident. Would you like to elaborate on that?
I mean, there's good officers and there's bad officers.
Do you believe in the criminal justice system and that it treats all individuals fairly and impartially?
Not all of them.
What are your general views on physical confrontations or using force to resolve disputes? So self-defense is usually regular.
I don't understand.
You don't understand my question?
Council approach. Okay, I'm gonna remove juror number 7 for cause due to the language barrier. Thank you, juror number 7. I'm going to replace juror number 7, Suzanne Moore. Proceed, council.
Ms. Moore, thank you for being here today. Do you have any objection or comments on any of the questions we've asked so far?
No.
Perfect. Juror number 5. You said earlier that you did have some negative opinions on law enforcement. Do you believe that this will affect your ability on being fair and impartial today? I'm going to continue the questioning and go back with, actually, let me go with juror number 7. So, have you or anyone close to you been a victim of an assault or battery? Have you ever been in a physical altercation?
No.
Have you ever witnessed an assault?
No.
Have you or anyone close to you had a significant interaction with the law?
I used to work for LPD.
And what did you do exactly?
I was the administrative assistant in the community services unit.
How long did you do that for?
Oh, I worked for the city of Lansing for 31 years.
Good, thank you for your service. So you currently don't work for,
No,
Law
I'm
enforcement.
retired.
okay. And so my question to you, what are your general opinions about police officers and their role in handling violent crimes?
They have a tough job, like any profession, there are good officers and bad officers. And hopefully the good outweigh the bad.
Do you believe that the criminal justice system treats all individuals fairly and impartially?
For the most part.
What are your general views on physical confrontations and the use of force in resolving disputes?
Should be used unless it's absolutely necessary to protect yourself.
So again, self-defense. Do you have any preconceived notions about people who commit acts of violence?
No.
Juror number 5. Do you have any strong opinions, positive or negative, about prosecutors or defense attorneys? Juror number 7.
No.
Have you heard anything about this case before today? Again, it's an assault and battery case, and the people involved are Ms. Jennifer Venn and Ms. Angel Gillespie. Are you willing to follow the law as explained by the judge, even if you disagree with it personally? Jury instructions for this case do not call for an injury in order to prove that there was an assault and battery. Would you be able to follow those instructions in making your deliberations, even if you don't agree with those instructions? Can you remain objective and not let personal feelings about violence influence your judgment on this case? This one is, again, the tricky one. How do you determine if someone is telling the truth when testifying in court?
I listened to all the testimony. I also look at the body language of the individual. That's a pretty good indication as to whether or not they're being forthright or not.
And I don't have a follow-up for that. Do you believe that if someone was charged with a crime, they're probably guilty?
No.
Are you comfortable discussing and deliberating a case with other jurors who may have different viewpoints than yours?
Yes.
Is there anything in your personal or professional life that's going to make it difficult for you to serve as a fair and impartial juror today? Again, okay, perfect. And do you have any possible biases because of race, gender, religion, or any other reason? Nothing for the people, Your Honor.
Mr. Rowley.
So for jurors number 5 and 7, I don't believe this has come up yet. Have either of you been on a jury before? Have either of you ever been witness in a criminal case? Have either of you been involved in a criminal case? And it's, I guess anybody can answer this, but can I count on all of you to just listen very closely to everything that is said today and to carefully consider everything you hear before you make a judgment? Do you have any concerns about their ability to fairly judge this case?
Okay, prosecution challenges for cause.
No challenges for cause, Your Honor.
Any for you, Mr. Rowley?
None from the defense, Your Honor.
Any preemptors?
Your Honor, we would like to thank and excuse juror number 3.
Thank you, juror number 3, for your service. Mr. Rowley, any preemptory?
I just would thank and excuse juror number 6, Your Honor.
Thank you, juror number 6. I'm going to replace juror number 3. Richard Torini. Juror number 6. Abigail Andrews. Counsel.
Thank you for your service, your 3 and 6. Thank you for being here today. I'm pretty sure you heard this line of questioning twice already. So is there anything that pops up to you before I try and make a rundown again really fast? Okay,
Oh, sorry. My husband was recently assaulted in Indonesia.
okay, and how did that happen?
He was on a missionary type trip and got jumped
How long ago was this?
a couple months ago.
And how did this incident and experience impact you?
I flew over there to take care of him for a few weeks and then came back.
You lost a lot of time, resources, money, a worrisome, scary time. And did you both return safely?
Yep, yes, he's healing.
Have you ever been in a physical altercation?
No.
Have you ever been a victim of an assault? That's your husband, okay. And you juror number 3? Not considered. Have any of you witnessed an assault? I know you heard about your husband's experience, but did you witness one?
College.
So how did you react to that incident?
I got away as far as
What did that at the time?
possible. How quick can I get to my car?
Stay safe is a priority always.
Not trying to-
Yes. Have you or anyone close to you had a significant experience with the court system?
I was in court all last year.
So it wasn't criminal court,
No, didn't make it
thankfully.
up.
And then with that being said, did your experience with the court change any viewpoints you had about the
It
court?
worked out.
Juror number 6. My question to you is, have you or anyone close to you had a significant experience with the court system?
I've had a couple family members get DUIs and deal with that.
Okay, and how does that affect your viewpoint of the court?
I guess neither, they're doing their job. So positive.
And so basically you'll stay impartial. Correct. Thank you. Does anyone, do you or anyone you know work in law enforcement, security, or the legal field?
No.
What are your general opinions about police officers and their roles in handling violent crime?
They do a good job.
They do the best they can.
Do you believe that the criminal justice system treats all individuals fairly and impartially?
The best they can.
I think that the system can be rough for people with fewer resources and not enough time. For example, in Indonesia, we couldn't pursue the assault charges because we couldn't be involved for months on end to pursue.
So it was basically like a visa issue.
Visa and resources, we'd have to pay for hotel to stay
Correct.
there.
I'm glad that nightmare is over. Now, what are your thoughts on aggressive behavior, and does anything justify it?
But it's not normally a de-escalate situation.
And what do you believe is a good justification for aggressive behavior?
So
Self-defense is a good one. Okay.
Sorry, repeat the question.
What are your thoughts on aggressive behavior and its justifications, if any?
Self-defense would be the.
Do you have any strong opinions, positive or negative, about prosecutors or defense attorneys?
one I don't like. So,
There's one you don't, is it the one from the divorce?
yeah, it's
Were they representing you?
no,
Okay, that's fine.
No, I don't.
Okay. And then let's Have you heard any details about this case before today?
No.
Do you need me to restate the charges or the people involved?
No.
Okay. Are you willing to follow the law as explained by the judge, even if you disagree with it?
Yes.
Now, the rules for this charge are that no injury is involved. Do you think that would impact your viewpoint in any way? Okay. Can you remain objective and not let your personal feelings about violence influence your judgment? And then, how do you normally determine if someone is telling you the truth?
Equal factors, what could be given us as evidence and then look at liability.
I would compare the facts against each other to see if there's any outliers.
And then, do you believe that if someone was charged with a crime, they're probably guilty of it?
No.
Are you comfortable discussing and deliberating a case with other people who may have different viewpoints?
Yes.
And then, do you have any possible biases based on race, gender, religion, or any other reason?
No.
Wonderful, nothing further for the people, Your Honor.
Thank you. Ms. Rowley.
One kind of general question I wanted to ask. Have any of you ever witnessed a crime directly or been victim of a crime?
I had my car broken into years ago, but I didn't
Okay.
witness it.
But it's something that happened to you.
Sure.
Right? So what did you do after that? Did you make a report? What did you-
Police ran the plates and then knocked on the door. They didn't even take anything. They just broke the windows because they were bored. So
Okay, so you found out who did it, right?
no, they didn't find out who did it.
Oh, okay.
It was in Washington DC. They don't really find out those
Oh.
kind of things there. So,
Probably happens like every day.
so
Okay. Do you feel, I guess, dissatisfied with that experience?
no, I think I had limited expectations of what the outcome was going to be. from
You
that
weren't
experience.
expecting much and you got it.
Yeah.
Okay. No more questions at this time. Thank you.
Township to pause.
None for the people.
Not from the defense.
Be three and three.
The people are satisfied with this jury, Your Honor.
Defense is satisfied as well.
Very good. Okay, so any further juries are waived and we are in panel to jury. And I want to thank the remaining four of you for your participation this morning. I know it's been a long morning. At one point, I got a little nervous that we weren't gonna make it because we were down to four, and so that's never a good sign. But we made it, and so you all will be excused. I'm gonna swear you all in and give you some further instruction, and then probably need to give you a lunch break because you've been here since this morning. But let's rise so that we can excuse those that are not going to serve today. Thank you again for appearing today. You can, all right, work the four out. Okay, you can be seated. Okay, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you have been chosen to decide a criminal charge made by the state of Michigan against one of your fellow citizens. I will now ask you to stand and swear to perform your duty to try the case justly and to reach a true verdict. If your religious beliefs do not permit you to take an oath, you may instead affirm to try the case justly and reach a true verdict. Here is your oath. If you can raise your right hand and stand. Thank you. Do each of you solemnly swear or affirm in this action now before the court that you will justly decide the questions submitted to you, that unless you are discharged by the court from further deliberation, you will render a true verdict, and that you will render your verdict only on the evidence introduced and in accordance with the instructions of the court? If you do so, please say I do. Thank you. You can be seated. You will get a written copy of the instructions that I'm going to read, but you won't get them until it's time for you to deliberate. So you won't be able to refer to them during the trial. Since no one can predict the course of the trial, these instructions may change at the end of the trial. Again, at the close of the trial, I will provide you with a copy of my final instructions for you to use during deliberations. Now I will explain some of the legal principles you will need to know and the procedure we will follow in this trial. These are the elements of assault and battery. The defendant is charged with the crime of assault and battery. To prove this charge, the prosecutor must prove each of the following elements beyond a reasonable doubt. First, that the defendant committed a battery upon Angel Gillespie. A battery is a forceful, violent, or offensive touching of the person or something closely connected with the person of another. The touching must have been intended by the defendant, that is, not accidental, and it must have been against Angel Gillespie's will. It does not matter whether the touching caused an injury. Second, the defendant intended either to commit a battery upon Angel Gillespie or to make Angel Gillespie reasonably fear an immediate battery. The definition of force and violence, as used in the instructions, the word force and violence means any use of physical force against another person as to harm or embarrass him or her. The definition of touching. For a battery to occur, the touching must have been intended by the defendant, that is, not accidental, and it must have been against Angel Gillespie's will. It does not matter whether the touching caused an injury. An assault does not have to cause an actual injury. However, if there was an injury, you may consider the injury with the other evidence in determining whether there was an assault. The prosecutor must prove beyond a reasonable doubt that the crime occurred on or about May 29, 2023, within the city of Lansing in Ingham County. A person accused of a crime is presumed to be innocent. This means that you must start with the presumption that the defendant is innocent. This presumption continues throughout the trial and entitles the defendant to a verdict of not guilty unless you are satisfied beyond a reasonable doubt that she is guilty. Every crime is made up of parts called elements. The prosecutor must prove each element of the crime beyond a reasonable doubt. The defendant is not required to prove her innocence or to do anything. If you find that the prosecutor has not proven every element beyond a reasonable doubt, then you must find the defendant not guilty. A reasonable doubt is a fair, honest doubt growing out of the evidence or lack of evidence. It is not merely an imaginary or possible doubt, but a doubt based on reason and common sense. A reasonable doubt is just that, a doubt that is reasonable after a careful and considered examination of the facts and circumstances of this case. A trial follows this procedure. First, the prosecutor makes an opening statement where she will give her theories about the case. The defendant's lawyer does not have to make an opening statement, but he may make an opening statement after the prosecutor makes hers, or he may wait until later. These statements are not evidence. They are only meant to help you understand how each side views the case. Next, the prosecutor presents her evidence. The prosecutor may call witnesses to testify and may show you exhibits like documents or objects. The defendant's lawyer may or has the right to cross-examine the prosecutor's witnesses. After the prosecutor has presented all of her evidence, the defendant's attorney may also offer evidence, but does not have to. By law, the defendant does not have to prove her innocence or produce any evidence. If the defense does call any witnesses, the prosecutor has the right to cross-examine them. The prosecutor may also call witnesses to contradict the testimony of the defense witnesses. After all the evidence has been presented, the prosecutor and the defendant's lawyers will make their closing arguments. Like the opening statements, these are not evidence. They are only meant to help you understand the evidence and the way each side sees the case. You must base your verdict only on the evidence. My responsibilities as the judge in this trial are to make sure that the trial is run fairly and efficiently, to make decisions about evidence, and to instruct you about the law that applies to this case. You must take the law as I give it to you. Nothing I say is meant to reflect my own opinions about the facts of the case. As jurors, you are the ones who will decide this case. Your responsibility as jurors is to decide what the facts of the case are. This is your job and no one else's. You must think about all the evidence and all the testimony and then decide what each piece of evidence means and how important you think it is. This includes how much you believe what each of the witnesses said. What you decide about any facts in this case is final. Part of your job in deciding what the facts of this case are is to decide which witnesses you believe and how important you think their testimony is. You do not have to accept or reject everything a witness says. You are free to believe all, none, or part of any person's testimony. In deciding which testimony you believe, you should rely on your own common sense and everyday experience. However, in deciding whether you believe a person's testimony, you must set aside any bias or prejudice you may have based on a witness's race, national origin or ethnicity, gender identity, or sexual orientation, or religion, age, or socioeconomic status. There is no fixed set of rules for judging whether you believe a witness, but it may help you to think about these questions. Was the witness able to see or hear clearly? How long was the witness watching or listening? Was anything else going on that might have distracted the witness? Does the witness seem to have a good memory? How does the witness look and act while testifying? Does the witness seem to be making an honest effort to tell the truth, or does the witness seem to evade the questions or argue with the lawyers? Does the witness's age or maturity affect how you judge his or her testimony? Does the witness have any bias or prejudice or any personal interest in how this case is decided? Have there been any promises, threats, suggestions, or other influences that affect how the witness testifies? In general, does the witness have any special reason to tell the truth or any special reason to lie? All in all, how reasonable does the witness's testimony seem when you think about all the other evidence in the case? When it is time for you to decide the case, you are only allowed to consider the evidence that was admitted in the case. Evidence includes only the sworn testimony of witnesses, the exhibits admitted into evidence, and anything else I tell you to consider as evidence. The questions the lawyers ask the witnesses are not evidence. Only the answers are evidence. You should not think that something is true just because one of the lawyers asks questions that assume or suggest that it is. I may ask some of the witnesses questions myself. These questions are not meant to reflect my opinion about the evidence. If I ask questions, my only reason would be to ask about things that may not have been fully explored. During the trial, you may think of an important question that would help you understand the facts in this case. You are allowed to ask such questions. You should wait to ask questions until after a witness has finished testifying and both sides have finished their questions. If you still have an important question after this, do not ask it yourself. Raise your hand, write the question down, and pass it to my court staff, who will give it to me. Do not show your question to the other jurors. When you return from your break, there will be notepads and pens in your seats. If your question is not asked, it is because I determined under the law that the question should not be asked. Do not speculate about why the question was not asked. In other words, you should draw no conclusions or inferences about the facts of the case, nor should you speculate about what the answers might have been. Also, in considering the evidence, you should not give greater weight to testimony that was given merely in response to questions submitted by the jurors. If you cannot hear a question or something that is said or something that's presented, you cannot see a witness, you need to raise your hand and it should say immediately. During the trial, the lawyers may object to certain questions or statements made by the other lawyers or witnesses. I will rule on these objections according to the law. My rulings for or against one side or the other are not meant to reflect my opinions about the facts of this case. Sometimes the lawyers and I will have discussions out of your hearing. Also, while you are in the jury room, I may have to take care of other matters that have nothing to do with this case. Pay no attention to these interruptions. You must not discuss the case with anyone, including your family or friends. You must not even discuss it with the other jurors until the time comes for you to decide the case. When it is time for you to decide the case, I will send you to the jury room for that purpose. Then you should discuss the case among yourselves, but only in the jury room and only when all the jurors are there. You must not talk to the defendant, the lawyers, witnesses, or anyone who may be connected to this case. This means you may not speak to these individuals even if it has nothing to do with this case. You should be very cautious about speaking to people because you may inadvertently speak to someone connected to this case. This restriction is necessary to avoid even the appearance of any improper conduct on any person's part. If anyone tries to discuss the case with you or in your presence, tell them to stop. Explain that you are a juror and you are not allowed to discuss the case. If they continue, leave. Report the incident to my court staff as soon as you return to the court. When the jury trial is over, these restrictions no longer apply. When the trial is over, you may, if you wish, discuss the case with anyone. During the trial, do not read, listen to, or watch any news reports about the case. Under the law, the evidence you consider to decide the case must meet certain standards. For example, witnesses must swear to tell the truth, and the lawyers must be able to cross-examine them. Because news reports do not have to meet these standards, they could give you incorrect or misleading information that might unfairly favor one side. So to be fair to both sides, you must follow this instruction. The restrictions I am about to describe are meant to ensure that the parties get a fair trial. In our judicial system, it is crucial that jurors are not influenced by anything or anyone outside the courtroom. Under the law, the evidence you must consider must meet certain standards. Again, for example, witnesses must swear to tell the truth and the lawyers must be able to cross-examine them. Because information obtained outside the courtroom does not have these safeguards, it could give you incorrect or misleading information that might unfairly favor one side. These restrictions start now and continue until I discharge you from jury service. It is your duty as a juror to decide this case based solely on the evidence you see and hear in this courtroom. You must not consider information that comes from anywhere else. This means that until you deliver your verdict, you must not read, watch, listen to, or receive any information, including opinions or commentary about the case, whether in newspapers, on television, the radio, the internet, or on social media platforms. You must also not research any aspect of the case during the trial. This means research using a cellular phone, computer, or other electronic device to search the internet, as well as research with traditional sources like dictionaries, reference manuals, newspapers, or magazines. You must not investigate the case on your own or conduct any experiments, concerning the case, including investigation or experiments using the internet, cellular phones, computers, or other electronic devices. You must not visit the scene of any event at issue in this trial. If it is necessary for you to view or visit the scene, court staff will take you there as a group under court supervision. You must not consider as evidence any personal knowledge you have of the scene. You must not share any information about the case by any means, including cellular phones or social media. This means that even if you were not discussing the case with someone else, you may not post any information about the case on social media websites or in any other manner. I need all the jurors to sit up, please. If you discover that a juror has violated my instructions, report it to court staff. You may take notes during the trial if you wish, but of course you do not have to. If you do take notes, you should be careful that it does not distract you from paying attention to all the evidence. When you go to the jury room to decide your verdict, you may use your notes to help you remember what happened in the courtroom. If you take notes, do not let anyone except the other jurors see them during deliberations. Your notes will not be examined by anyone, and when your jury service concludes your notes will be collected and destroyed. You can see that we have selected a jury of 7. After you have heard all the evidence and my instructions, we will draw lots or numbers to decide which one of you will be dismissed to form a jury of 6. Possible penalty should not influence your decision. If you find the defendant guilty, it is the duty of the judge to fix the penalty within the limits provided by law. I may give you more instruction during the trial. After all the evidence has been presented, you will hear the lawyer's closing arguments. Following the closing arguments, I will give you additional instructions about the rules of law that apply to this case. You should take all of my instructions as a connected series. Taken together, they are the law you must follow. After my final instructions, you will go to the jury room to decide on your verdict. A verdict must be unanimous. That means that every juror must agree on it, and it must reflect the individual decision of each juror. It is important to keep an open mind and not make a decision about anything in the case until you go to the jury room to decide the case. You must not let bias, prejudice, or public opinion influence your decision. Each of us may have biases or perceptions about other people based on stereotypes. We may be aware of some of our biases, though we do not express them. We may not be fully aware of some of our other biases. Take the time you need to test what might be automatic or instinctive judgments and to reflect carefully about the evidence. I caution you again to avoid reaching conclusions that may have been unintentionally influenced by stereotypes. You must reach your own conclusions about this case individually, but you should do so only after listening to and considering the opinions of the other jurors, who may have different backgrounds and perspectives from yours. We are at 1:30 on the dot. I'm going to give you 30 minutes for lunch. It will take a couple minutes. You have their juror stickers. Juror stickers for them. You will have a sticker that will identify you in the building as being a juror. Again, remember the jury instruction that you're not to have any conversations with any persons that are involved in this case, and because you don't know who is involved in the case, you need to be very cautious. There are a few restaurants down on the strip. A lot of them will probably close at 2, so we're gonna cut it close. Let me have you get back here to the jury room at 2. So if you're gonna get lunch, take it to go, bring it back here. I probably won't call the case back until 2:15, but I need to have you all back here at 2, wrapping up your lunches. We're just gonna give you some stickers before you can be released.